Welcome back to MFO, everybody. Happy Labor Day to you. I came down here to do an episode about what baits to throw in September. And as I started talking and kind of working it out, I realized this is premature. Before we talk about what baits to throw in September, we have to be talking about why. And the fall turnover is the main reason that we're going to be throwing certain baits and doing certain things in September that we weren't doing in July and August. So I'm going to take today's video and talk about the fall turnover and being prepared and what to do to be on the lookout for the fall turnover. Then tomorrow we'll talk about what baits to throw using this information. So stick around. We'll talk about the fall turnover and being aware of it when we come back. Welcome back to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. I am Mark Fisher, and we are talking about the fall turnover. And guys, at least in the lakes that I've been on, it hasn't happened yet, but I'm starting to pay attention. And the first thing and the most important thing that I'm doing is every time I drop that trolling motor, every time I turn that graph on, I'm watching what the surface temperature is. In the summer, it's not uncommon to see surface temperatures in the 80s, depending on where you are. And again, I'm up north. Obviously, down in Florida, those surface temps can be 88 and things like that. Depending on what part of the country you are, but it doesn't matter. The reality is that the surface temperature is much warmer during the summer. And with that surface temperature being up that high, what that does is it creates stratification. We all know about the thermocline. You got the warm water up at the top, and then you've got a center layer that is kind of mid temperature, and then you've got your cooler water down at the bottom. Now, the reality is the upper layer holds oxygen, okay? The reality, and I don't know that a lot of people know this, but the thermocline itself is actually the most oxygen-rich area of the water, which is why in the summertime, if you can find where that thermocline is, if you can see it on your graph, and you've got a bank that's coming down here and the thermocline, that's where you want to fish, right where that thermocline comes up to that structure, because those fish are going to be holding on structure that is right in that oxygen-rich thermocline. They're not going to be below it because the oxygen levels are too low. They might be anywhere between that thermocline and anywhere above that. So now what we've got going on is that temperature, surface temperature, is starting to go down. And so like I said, what I'm doing is when I get in the boat this weekend, I'm going to be checking the temperature. Yep, it's starting to go down. As that temperature goes down, the actual oxygen level in the upper portion of the lake starts to become equal to the thermocline. And then what you'll see happen when the surface temperature goes down enough to get close to being equal to the temperature underneath the thermocline, that's what we find as the fall turnover. And at this point, all the water is mixing together. There is no stratification anymore. And what's happening is a couple of things to be aware of. Number one, that oxygen level that was all condensed in the upper 2/3 of the water column is now mixed throughout the entire body of water. And so literally there is less parts of oxygen per million in the entire lake than there was before, because you've now taken, instead of being in the top 2/3, it's been included in the entire lake. We didn't add more oxygen, we just spread it out over more water. That is going to put bass in a more lethargic mood. Add that with the fact that they can be in the entire water column now and they aren't condensed to where the oxygen was, they're way less patternable. So you've got the fall where, yes, the bass are going to be feeding because they're going to start to be feeding up for the winter. That's the good news. The bad news is they're going to be all over the place, spread out, and they're going to be in a more lethargic mood because of less oxygen in the entire lake. They're not going to be in an oxygen-rich environment. So these factors have a component in what baits to throw and where to look. It's one of the reasons why the fall is really considered to be kind of a junk fishing kind of a time of year. You can just pretty much throw out pattern fishing. And now, boy, you could catch one throwing a Cinco and another one catching a chatterbait or another one on topwater and things like that. So tomorrow, what we're going to talk about is how does this time of year make you translate this information that I'm giving you into what baits to throw and how to approach fall fishing. I got to be honest, guys. Like we said, fall fishing can be really spectacular if you can locate those fish that are feeding and getting ready for winter. But you have to approach it way differently than you did in the summer. In the summer, you were patterning fish. You were finding fish either shallow or deep or in these areas or that area. And now it's going to be a little bit of everything. But stick around tomorrow and we're going to talk about what baits to throw and what to look for in your fall fishing. We'll cover that tomorrow. We appreciate you tuning in. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Take care, everybody.